Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for braving this crazy weather that it's called Minnesota, but anyway. It's great to see all of you who've shown up and know that we're recording. And so for people who can't make it, in about a week or so, we'll have it up on the SAPLA website, and so that you can access this information later. I'm Rita Ledoux. I'm chair of the St. Anthony Park Branch Library Association. We thought about doing that at the library, but the library has to close. You have to be out at 8 o'clock. And we thought you guys might want to talk longer. And it just felt like a good place to be able to come here to this welcoming church. And the St. Anthony Park Lutheran Church has been very, very welcoming and allowing us to come in and use their spaces. So thanks to the church. Tonight, we're going to share this event with our co-sponsors, Friends of Breckwoods, and Transition Park ASAP. ASAP means All St. Anthony Park. This will be a focused community discussion on the green space issues of St. Anthony Park, specifically the revisioning of the Luther Seminary lawn and how we as neighbors can help the developers, or hopefully help the developers develop their plans. This program, called Postcards from the Future, is an exploration of our community's hopes and dreams for revisioning the future of the Luther Seminary campus. Our presenters will present you with the current state of this property and its eventual sale, and you, our friends and neighbors, will be asked to participate in helping the members of Breckwoods and Transition Town record and map our hopes and dreams to help developers guide their plans for this important corner of our neighborhood. Note, next month, SAPLA has a program in February around black baseball, the history of black baseball, and there's also going to be the luminary at the Langford Park around Valentine's Day. So those are some little pieces to look forward to from SAPLA. Right now, I'd like to welcome Eliza Swedenborg and Ann Jurgens to present.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Eliza Swedenborg, and it's so wonderful to see you all here today. I am so glad you all got here safely. I also want to start with thanks to St. Anthony Park Lutheran Church for hosting us tonight. Thank you to Transition Town and Friends of Breckwoods. Thank you to Ann Jurgens for helping with the mic. And thank you to Rita Ledoux, who many of you all know I also refer to as Mom. And the entire SAPLA, St. Anthony Park Branch Library Association group. They do these forums, they do the luminaries, they do the arts festival. Woo, for SAPLA. This is a neighborhood of people who care, and they act on that care. And it's just, thank you all so much for coming tonight. I want to start by acknowledging, this is a conversation about land, and as such, I want to acknowledge that we are living here in this neighborhood on the traditional land of the Dakota people. I also want to acknowledge the events of yesterday morning in Minneapolis, where an ICE agent shot and killed a woman, Renee Nicole Good. She, from what I hear, was a mother of 3. She was a poet. She was loved. She was probably terrified, and she shouldn't have died. She shouldn't have been killed. And so I thought I wanted to start tonight by just asking for a moment of silence, if it's okay, thinking of of Renee and her family. So I still feel pretty raw from the news of yesterday, and fearful about what's next. And in some ways it feels, we're talking about the future of the Luther Seminary campus today. In some ways that feels like a pretty quaint conversation, and privileged and discordant. And so I was reflecting on, what is the reason that this Postcards from the Future project happened? And over the last year, the words urgency and agency kept showing up in my head, sort of like a song stuck in my head or like a headache. Urgency and agency, always right next to each other. And feeling this sense of the urgency of solving all of these enormous challenges that we're facing in this time. And also feeling so small in my own sense of agency. But what I just have to believe is that claiming our agency where we do have to have it matters. That showing up and organizing community events like this matters. That being a witness, a legal observer to illegal and cruel acts matters. That showing up for your neighbors matters. Taking care of yourself matters. And refusing to assume a dystopian future matters. And that's what this project is about. This is about saying, well, what if the future were beautiful? What if it were better? And I have zero authority to make that happen. You have agency. I do have some. I have gumption. And so last thing I want to say about the escalating ICE presence is that if anyone feels called to be more involved as a constitutional observer, we have a neighbor who can be a point person for that, so you can come and ask me about that later. But now to the program as was planned. I have 4 goals tonight, which is ambitious. I think usually you should have 3 goals max. But I have 4 goals tonight. The first one is just to help make sure everyone is up to speed on the different properties and transitions. So my good friend, Ann Jurgens, and fellow board member at Friends of Breck Woods, she has been paying very close attention. And so she's gonna help us all with our homework on that one. The second piece is just describing a little bit what the heck is this Postcards from the Future project. And then the third is to share some of the ideas that have started to emerge from the workshops and conversations in this project. And the fourth, most exciting, is to invite all of you to be a part of that and to sort of we'll have small group discussions and where you can discuss as a group and write your own postcards from the future. So, Anne, without further ado, I'm going to invite you up here.
This is a map. Ramsey County has a GIS site that is fantastic, and you can see how much property taxes are and assessed value. Thanks, Michael. And this is a somewhat crude rendering of 3 major parcels and a 4th parcel that are actually up for development in St. Paul, Lauderdale, and Falcon Heights in the coming year and months. I'm going to, this all started last year in 2025. We learned that the seminary had signed a purchase agreement with Lifestyle Communities and SW Group to develop housing on a 16.6 acre parcel that is outlined in green. Okay. And that was in the spring. Shortly thereafter, we learned that in June that the university was selling the Les Bolstead golf course. And that is outlined in red. Thank you. That's 141 acres. Bigger than Highland Bridge development down by in the old Ford plant. Then in July, the SEM announced that the entire campus was going to be for sale. So they added the 10-plus acre yellow parcel that includes Bachman Hall and starts right across the street with the green space, and then Bachman. There are 4 major buildings. Bachman, which is in the National Registry, Gullickson Hall, that beautiful stone building that's the library, Muskego Church, that's also on the National Registry, and Olson Campus Center, where many of us vote. That was built in 1986. So we also then, I have a little red star on Health Partners has a plot that's 4.3 acres that they bought in, I think, 2015. It might be 2014 or 16, I'm not sure. I have it written down, but I didn't get to that today. And they have told us that they are definitely going to develop something there, that this is their original clinic, Health Partners, the Como Clinic, and it's their busiest. And that they are dedicated to it. They're not going to walk away from this, but what they're going to build there and when, they're not ready to engage really with the public on. And I've heard rumors, and I'm not going to repeat them here because I'm trying to stay fact-based. What I think is really good to see is how all of these properties connect to each other, and they're mostly green space. And one of the things that Friends of Breck Woods, which I'm one of the founders with Cindy and Steve Algren and others, has been most concerned about is the Breck Woods, but also giving a voice to some of the critters, the trees, the things we need. But I've been a housing advocate most of my career, work life, and we also need housing. So how do we engage with the developers to have responsible development where they can save as many trees and I think have a green corridor or something where we can be as kind to the critters? The challenge here is these are 4 different potential owners and different timing. So coordinating is even more of a challenge. So citizen voices, I think, are really important in all of this. The other thing about all of these acres, and it's 166 acres, not including the 4.5 of Health Partners. So let's say 170 acres that's going to be developed in the next decade, 5 years, whatever. It's mostly, much of it is green space, but it's also had public access. The public has been using these spaces for soccer games and for skiing and walking and Vacation Bible School and the 4th of July, everything. So we wrote a thing in the Bugle called The Public Life of Private Lands, and we can't, I don't think, I'd like to continue to ask the developers and the seminary and the university who have not paid taxes. All of this is tax-free land, except for the Health Partners parcel. What?
1 minute.
Oh, okay, thank you. It's all been tax-free. So they've been getting a benefit from the public, and I think we have a right to ask some benefits back, and we can discuss what those might be. The upper campus, I said, was 10 acres. The estimated market value by the county, from the county assessor, is $18,600,000. And the seminary has not put out any guidance for what they expect developers to meet with that land. They do refer to the St. Anthony Park Community Council task force, has some land use guidelines, design guidelines. They're quite general. They're on the St. Anthony Park Community Council website. Also, for the golf course, the Falcon Heights City website, golf course sale, has a lot of information if you're interested in digging into the weeds. Let's see if there's anything. Of the lower campus, the Luther Seminary development, we do know they're proposing 230 to 250 units. None are rentals. They're all for sale. And they said we're going to have none are technically called affordable, but the developers have said we're going to have a variety of entry price points. The lowest price point is $400,000. So that's the variety of price points. The task force of the Community Council voted to recommend to the community, that community council write a letter of support for the proposed development plan. And they have made some responses to community input, the developers have. Community input, even small changes can make a big difference. And I have my own opinions on what we should be asking for, public access, among other things, because in fact, the parcels that the seminary is selling and the golf course are one big parcel, and they have no public roads in them. So we have a right to walk on public streets and sidewalks, but in this newest lower campus development, it's all one lot, and they're not putting public roads in. That doesn't mean they're going to put up a big fence and a gate, but it means the homeowners association could later, if they don't like us or if some garages get broken into. So public access in a way that is continuous and perpetual, I would say, is, to me, an important thing because I walk a lot. And I think that that's enough overview, but I can answer a few questions. There's a lot more numbers I could give you, but that's kind of, I'm trying to be fact-based, not just opinion-based here. Okay? Great.
Could you just
Set.
clarify Luther's, could you just clarify Luther's naming of upper campus and lower campus?
Good point. They used to be called North and South Campus, but I think upper is on height, elevation above sea level. I made that up because I'm not really sure, because the yellow,
Part closer to Speedy is upper campus, and the part closer to Minneapolis is lower campus. Makes no sense to all of us, but that's what it means.
thank you, Pat. But that's what they're using right now, but they're all contiguous. If you just take a look at this, they're all related to each other.
One more question.
Sure.
Maybe you're not the right person, but do you know anything about traffic patterns and what the newest status is?
They have a traffic study from the lower campus that found that most people would be from the development as proposed, the 230 to 250 new units, none rentals, all owner-occupied, would be mostly using Hendon and turning right on Hendon going towards Minneapolis. And I can't quote you the number of extra trips per day, but the traffic people have said the city, I think, has said that's an acceptable load for these roads. They may have to change the Hendon turn onto Como, and they may have to put a stop sign in. Do you know more about this, Carrie?
Yeah, no, I just say that I think they were going to add a turn lane because they need to walk
Yeah.
where it intersects, so that's a very dangerous intersection already.
Yes, and they may add a light.
But still,
No light.
No light, okay.
Repeat that, please, what she said.
She said that they are going to add a turn lane at the base of Hendon entering Como, so that you can have people turning right and turning left without waiting for everyone to turn left. Yes?
And is the plan for the lower, meaning the upper area, does that mean they're tearing down the buildings that exist there? Is what they're-
I think that is anticipated unless we find someone who wants to turn Bachman into a nice set of condos or a hotel.
Well,
What?
which campus did you
My
mean?
understanding is they've done no upkeep on those buildings, period.
Oh, and that's part of the deal is, yes, it's as is. They are selling it as is. So it would be a expensive undertaking. And they're not willing to partition the 10-acre parcel of the upper campus either. With those, there are lots of people who would love to buy those 9 houses. There's 9 single-family dwellings. They won't partition them. And what I've been told is those are easier to make money and build on than Bachman and Gullickson, which would be quite a demolition project.
All right. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Anne. So whenever I hear any of this, I feel like destabilized a little bit. Like my nervous system goes, ah! It's like it's a huge change. I will say any questions about traffic or specific buildings or trees, like these are great pieces of information, of comments to bring to our local officials, the task force, the developers themselves, et cetera. And so this all feels very destabilizing. And I also remember last year being both in the Transition Town group and in the Friends of Brookwoods group saying, what should our role be here? And in me as an individual, what can my role be here with all of this change happening? What can I possibly do about it? And then I remember Kathy Magnuson, who I don't think I've seen here tonight, but she said, this will change us meaning the community. Who do we want to be? And that for me completely flipped the question of this change. And so towards what is the potential? Who do we want to be? And that has really been the sort of like anchoring question of this project. So,
Eliza?
yeah.
Oh, before we go into the visioning,
Yeah.
just one background question.
Yeah.
Two, the points have been made that these are all separate properties, that different owners now or in the future, many without development plans yet. But is there any unit of government that has an interest in this? Because I know I've called the city council, and I've heard different city departments are kind of like. Yes, and like different city departments, there are no rules that are being broken or anything, but in terms of visioning the opportunities that you're outlining, have we identified any unit of government that has any interest in it? Like, you think maybe Ramsey County, although, they're looking at development and tax base.
Yeah, so the question was, is there a unit of government where I've seen a really, positive response and interest? And I am not sure that I have a great answer to that question. I think Ramsey County is the unit that has all of these parcels, versus St. Paul, Lauderdale, and Falcon Heights being 3 different jurisdictions. I think it's something that we need to continue to bring to our elected officials. Yes, so let's yes, thank you. So tonight, what I'd like to do is to share a bit of the Postcards from the Future project and how we have started to sort of ask the question of like, what is the opportunity here? And how we've been thinking about theory of change a little bit, and which is imperfect. And then also getting everyone a chance to share their own thoughts on what future they could envision, so that we have something to bring forward. I lost my spot in my notes. All right, there we go. So the Postcards from the Future project, as I said, I think it is envisioned as a collective imagination project. It is a dialogue and art project. It is as an alternative to the type of conversation that you might be able to have at a city council meeting, for example. So in the way that this was envisioned, and which kind of hit me as a bolt of lightning. I don't know if anyone else has this experience of like having lots of different questions and data points circulating in your head, and all of a sudden you get hit by a bolt of lightning, and that forms a constellation. Just me? No? Okay. So the idea has been starting with a series of workshops. So we hosted a couple of small workshops this fall. One was here in this Lutheran church on the Luther Seminary upper campus, and one was hosted at Luther Seminary itself on Brookwoods and the Trolley Trail. I mentioned it's a dialogue and art project. So my friend Allie Ricken has been doing some amazing watercolor already for this. And we're planning to have an exhibit at Boreal in March. Save the date, TBD on when the reception for that will be, but also Carrie Morgan is going to be helping with that. We've had a series of Bugle articles. We've done some light decision maker outreach, so that just means like putting the ideas that have started to emerge just on the radar of people who have influence and authority. And then we have this forum tonight. And beyond tonight, I don't have a specific plan, so we'll see what emerges. So, and again, the goal has been to unearth ideas for how the sale and redevelopment of the land here can strengthen community well-being. And so I was thinking about what are different ways that I can share with you what are those ideas. And so we have this art that Allie did. I don't want to just tell you, here's all the ideas that came out of the workshops. And I want you to, maybe experience them a little bit. And so I've written sort of a travelogue, a time traveler's travelogue that I'm going to read. And I know that that's not the best way to receive information, but just know that after that, it will have breakout groups where you all will get to be a part of it. So here goes. I've been to the year 2046. I built a small time machine. And it wasn't a fancy one, not one of those fancy time machines. Just enough room for a couple dozen fellow time travelers. We packed our bags with memories, prepared for takeoff, and walked through the portal. Our feet touched the ground in the year 2046, just outside these doors, at Como and Luther Place, at the southernmost tip of the old Luther Seminary campus. And the first thing we heard was laughter. Here, where the St. Anthony Park Arts Festival still happens every year, the fingerprints of that festival now remain all year long. You see, art seems to have sprouted from the landscape, as if it were the most natural ecosystemic companion to the dogwoods and oaks and milkweed and blazing star that have emerged there over the years as well. These islands of color are outfitted with benches, inviting us time travelers and people in the year 2046 to stop, sit, rest, reflect with curiosity and wonder. Okay, I mentioned laughter, so back to the laughter. It came from a family. They were idly moored at one such island with a pair of metal sculptures, two bedazzled turkey toms locked in a dance battle for perpetuity. The family, who were ignoring the duel, watched with delight as a monarch left a cluster of milkweed flowers to light just for a second on top of a child's head, then flew off to the next island up the hill. We time travelers, we followed that monarch until we heard the sounds of garden spades, running water, and neighborly gossip. Benign, I presume. Kneeling bodies tended the garden plots surrounding a man-made creek, which bubbled and flowed from under the grand pillars of the old Bachman Hall. Some of the neighbors with the plots in this community flower garden live in Chicago, overlooking the space. Some live in the new housing that has been built on the old campus, housing which is now fully lived in and enlivened by the new neighbors. New apartment buildings, new senior housing, new multifamily homes. A small tour group walks by. The tour guide enthusiastically describes the development's integration of affordable housing, the networked thermal energy, underground space for cars, and plenty of space for bicycles too. Where's Bonnie? The tour guide points out oh my gosh, I'm still over here. This was the garden. I forgot. I was so taken. Okay. The tour guide points out the narrow buildings with big windows on each side, allowing the passage of sunlight and a cooling breeze, which animates the laundry up on the balconies. Green corridors for neighbors to traverse and children to walk safely to school, common space for shared meals and concerts. We time travelers listen to the tour guide intently as we follow the tour group further up the hill up to Bachman Hall, which has now become a boutique hotel, to a little cafe with outdoor seating where dishes clink and people drink. From here, we can survey the scene as a whole, the new homes, the new neighbors, the green space which has been reinvigorated in the form of a public commons, sort of like an Italian piazza. But this is not Italy. This is a beautiful expression of this place. And as it integrates neighbors old and new, it is also an expression of shared belonging in this place, an expression of community and care. When Luther Seminary sold its campus, that's how the tour guide talks. When Luther Seminary sold its campus, some people worried that the housing development would change this community, and it has, for the better. Okay, we might have questions about that, maybe some comments, but we have to move on. We have more time traveling to do. So we walk up and over the hills. We time travelers go through the old Luther Seminary lower campus, past more apartment buildings and multifamily homes until we arrive at the entrance of Breck Woods. Now, in 2046, there's thank you. In 2046, there's a trail marker here with a large map that charts the path which connects St. Paul, Lauderdale, and Falcon Heights communities. As the path leads down into the woods, the light dims, filtered by dark green canopy high above. Our time traveler feet, we have walked these woods before, but our footing is surer now. The path is much easier, and it has been redesigned to be more accessible for all. We walk until the path opens to a clearing, and we come upon a class of preschoolers. Now, not all of you know, but my whole genesis of this is my own preschoolers love Breck Woods. They go there with their preschool. But, okay, so we see a class of preschoolers, and they're searching for sticks for a little campfire outside a yurt. I know how that sounds. I have lost some of you now. Disbelief has been suspended, or dissuspended perhaps. But I am just a time traveler, and I'm reporting to you on what the time travelers in our workshop saw. And on the timeline that we traveled, there was a yurt and a campfire, not entirely unlike the Como Woodland outdoor classroom. The group of preschoolers is overflowing with excitement and curiosity and awe and joy. In 2046, these woods are a living classroom, not just for a preschooler, but for all. Back up the hill, there's a closet of mud boots of all sizes and binoculars and bug spray that's free to check out, a little explorer's lending library, and a shed full of tools that community groups can use to help care for the woods. As we walk through the woods, and onto the trolley trail, singing, "It's a beautiful day in the neighborhoods." We time travelers, we see evidence of that care. Where there were once stands of buckthorn, we see lovingly planted underbrush bushes, providing harbor for small migrating birds. We see young trees who have been planted, young recruits which will be ready to grow tall when the old canopy trees someday fall. Finally, we take the tunnel under Larpenter, and we emerge at the new development at the golf course. I haven't done a workshop on the golf course, so I don't know what happens there. In 2046 and the years preceding, life isn't all butterflies and bicycles and yurts. The community has weathered waves of crisis. The climate has continued to grow more unstable. From birds and bugs to fens and forests, the ecological web has continued to unravel. For those of us who are not billionaires, the lived economy has swung worse and worse again. The pillars and foundations of the institutions we once took for granted have continued to crack. When the old Luther Seminary campus was redeveloped, it did not solve any of these problems. Not even close. And yet, while these global challenges become more daunting and urgent, the little things we do have agency over matter, and the redesign of this land can play a role, creating acupuncture points, which might gather the community's energy toward restoration, toward respite, toward reciprocity and resilience. Here is the work we do to strengthen the fabric of our community through shared belonging and collective care. So. I'm done talking, not forever, but for now. I think I have some helpers. The next piece is breakout groups. So everyone's already seated at tables. We're gonna hand out some little breakout discussion guides. And I would recommend having groups of 3 or 4 people-ish, 5 if you really like each other, go for it. And And we're going to do a little bit of a twist on the Postcards from the Future concept, in which I'd like everyone to think about to think about voices that are not typically represented in development decision making. So I have a list of what those are. You might have others you want to add, but future generations, young children, past generations, our ancestors, and nature, the web of life itself. So if thinking about what those voices might want to see on this land, and also what you would like to see on this land, and then writing your own postcards from the future and sharing it with each other. We have about 20 minutes for that, which is a big ask, and then we'll have people share back. I saw a question.
Is she the artist of all the postcards?
Yeah.
How
And I have lots of copies of the postcards that I can share also. Yeah.
What should we write on?
It's coming. Yeah.
I want to be the voice of people who can't afford to live in this neighborhood now, but should have a fair chance. And I think we need more. I live in an apartment now, in Wessenberg's apartment right across the street here. We need more apartments in this neighborhood.
Kids in this neighborhood are going to college somewhere, they're going to have to share, and they might come back.
It's changed. And from traffic patterns and how it was to, so much has changed from where I've worked and everything else. And I'd like to see a place, if I got this neat little notebook. The best way to predict the future is to create the future, and that's why we're here now.
So the question is, what am I going to do with the postcards? I am going to document them, and they're going to be maybe part of the exhibit at Boreal, but we'll also share what is documented in different outreach to officials, developers, etc. Yeah, sort of like a survey, but a weird one. Yeah. Okay. I see. All right, everyone. So I wonder if there's a couple of things I'd like to know from the groups. I'm really curious whether thinking from the perspective of other voices, if anything came out of that, gave you new ideas or sort of different ideas about the future of this space. I'd love to hear about that. I'd love to hear, if anyone wants to share their postcard, what they wrote, that would be lovely. And by the way, I forgot to say, NK, thank you for the videography. It's amazing to have a record of this. Thank you. But yeah, I'd like to invite anyone who would like to come and say a little bit about the experiment, whether it is the experience of putting yourselves in the shoes of these other voices, or the sort of you're thinking about the postcard perspective on this land. And I would ask you to keep it brief if you do come up. And if you have a lot to say, I recommend attending City Council. So, anyone want to come up here and say a little bit about their group's discussion or any aha moments that they had? Charlotte.
I live really close, and Claudia said something when we were figuring out what voices we were going to be, and something that I hadn't thought of that I'm already going to miss is she mentioned students from abroad that are living here? And will they be here again? You know, will that be preserved? So anyway, thank you, Claudia.
I lived in this neighborhood many years, and then I moved to Nebraska. I moved to Nebraska for 10 years. Now I'm back again. So I was a little surprised to hear maybe no rental housing in these new developments. I just think that's all wrong. I moved back to Ned Wessenberg's apartment building right here next to the station. I love it. I think we need more rental housing. And so my view is that it would be housing for older people like me and younger people, which we have there. I mean, so you have a mix and you have people who can help each other if necessary. And so I think rental housing has got to be part of this, and then make it, accessible paths and all that stuff that will help us all live together.
I'm just clarifying that it's only the lower campus that has a proposal where we know there will be no rentals. The other developers have not yet put forth plans, or the university hasn't accepted, so we don't know. And I think it's likely there will be some rentals, but.
So one voice that is typically not in our discussions are Native Americans. Here's the postcard. I feel like I can walk again in the footsteps of the ancestors. The old trail they followed to the wild rice lakes was reconnected 10 years ago. I can almost hear the creaking of the travois, the visits they had with the Gibbs family, the quiet conversations with the children. I admire the vision of the people who helped us so generously.
Our most lively discussion was about traffic patterns, but we leave that aside. So our future postcard is no cars. Anyway, we had a discussion about future generations, ancestors, and nature. Curiously enough, the answer to future generations and the answer to ancestors was almost the same. Preserving green spaces is key because they will never come back once you give them up. Unless you turn Harmar Mall into a green space, because we're turning the golf course into concrete. Historical markers that memorize the people who lived here before and telling future generations what was. And similarly, climate or environmental markers, somehow an artistic visual way that traces the temperature and other elements of the climate as it was when the natives were here, when the first settlers came, what it is now, and what will be, so people can actually see not only, the experience is very slow, but they can see visually how dramatic the changes are. And we also discussed the perspective of nature. Do you want to say what we wrote here? We want to be able to move across the boundaries, find food and shelter so we can survive. Not too groomed, but accessible. Fair enough?
Our
group talked a little bit about what it felt like to be as a child back in the day, where you could just go anywhere and you didn't have to think about it. And it's hard to explain to folks that are that small that you can't do something like go in a neighbor's yard or that sort of thing. And we also talked about intentionality, so mine is a little bit more poetic than we discussed. But I said, to a future healthy, vibrant community rooted in our rich history. We hope that our neighborhood did a good job advocating for a built environment that creates more community than isolates you, that has the right green space in the right places to keep you healthy and active, that preserves the culture of kindness and inclusivity that we have now, that balances business needs and everyday life, that honors our ancestors and allows you to live in harmony with a changing climate, and that lets all generations live together as an inspiration to others.
Maybe one or two more. Thank you. Those were really beautiful. Thank you. Like I said, I if anyone wrote, on their postcards or on their pieces of paper, feel free to leave those at your table so I can collect them and we can document them and maybe translate them into some more art that is shareable. Maybe. She said, was that a yes, please? Okay, good. And I guess in closing, I want to start with where I started, which is this is a community that cares and that acts on that care. And thank you so much all for braving the ice tonight and coming out here. If you want to sign up to learn more about just anything that in the future that happens with this project, there's a sign-up sheet over there. You can also tick a box for the St. Anthony Park Bureau Branch Library Association information, Friends of Breck Woods newsletters, which are infrequent but informative, and the monthly Transition Town newsletters. And if anyone has ideas or is interested in bringing some of this to life, let me know, or just go do it. That's cool too. And with that, I think please be safe on the road, and I'll hand it back to my mom, Rita.
Okay, I just want to thank you all for coming tonight, braving the weather. Drive home safely. Remember February, what's the date? February 12th is going to be Frank White on his book called They Play for the Love of the Game, which is baseball, history of black history, baseball and rondo history from Minnesota. And the Sapelo Luminary, which is over Valentine's weekend, which will be really fun. And I also want to thank deeply Ann and Eliza, Transition Town, and the Friends of Breck Woods. Drive home safely. Thank you very much.
One really quick event coming up that I forgot to mention. Our own Pat Thompson is leading an event, a panel event about a complete neighborhood at the golf course. Do you want to just do it?
Yeah,
do you want to just say it? Yeah. Sorry.
January 22nd, so that's a Thursday, at the Falcon Heights City Hall, 7 p.m. It's a panel presentation, not a discussion, so it's going to be 3 brief presentations. Larry Kraft, who's the state representative from St. Louis Park. Spencer Miller Cox, who's a staff member from St. Paul's Planning and Economic Development Center staff, who's works on the Highland Bridge, and is also the local leader of the Center for New Urbanism. And then Mike Hirabashi, who's a member of Unidos St. Paul and has been instrumental in the fact that the Heights is implementing district energy and heating, to talk about trying to make the golf course a complete neighborhood, which, I don't know, doesn't look like this view is getting any particularly good proposals at this point. So I don't know what's going to happen with the golf course, but, if it's going to be developed and be housing, it should be the best thing it can be for the future of climate change that we're facing. So that's what this is about, to try and get folks in Falcon Heights, hopefully, to be interested in that reality. Sorry.
January 22nd.
Thursday, January 22nd, 7 p.m. at the Falcon Heights City Hall.
And what's the Regents meeting? Are they reviewing?
I guess the Regents are meeting on Tuesday, Ann was telling me.
Well, no,
Or something?
administrative,
I don't know what's happening with the Regents.
that's not my area, maybe on the 12th or 13th.
Good. Thank you all.